It's in times like these where we have to ask ourselves the important questions. Does it count as clickbait if I'm using promotional images from Definitive Edition in the thumbnail of a video only using footage from the original game? I'm not sure right now. My audio setup is a pair of earpods plugged into a gaming headset adapter because my microphone broke. It's gonna be a week before that gets fixed, so this video, next Sunday's video, and probably another video being uploaded to this channel in the coming week, and all of Astral Chain after File 8 are going to be recorded in this audio quality, just warning you of that right now. Also, there's not going to be comments on any main channel videos enabled until I finish Future Connected, because the entire game's been dumped, so watch out for that. But yeah, before all that started, I originally wanted to open this video with a shout out to a big, awesome fan project. The Minato Secret Files art book and lore book has been fully fan-translated into English as of a few days ago. I was not involved in the translation project personally. The closest I am is just being a member of the Discord server where they're coordinating everything from. But a few people I know, a few people you might know from YouTube, and a few names I recognize from my comment section and Twitter notifications were involved in there, so I trust this translation. It's being actively improved on as we speak. I'm going to link a Reddit post with several different mirrors of it in the description of this video, and a big Xeno media storage archive site is going to be hosting another mirror of, I think, the most recent version starting next month. Major kudos to everyone involved in that project. This video would not be possible without a lot of information from the art book. Anyway, I'm talking about the Mechon today, and it's going to require major spoilers for Xenoblade Chronicles 1, so don't watch this if you're planning on going into Definitive Edition blind, and actually, stay off the internet if you're planning on going into Definitive Edition blind. It's been dumped, like I said. This is definitely a video to put in watch later, and come back to once you finish the game if you want to know a bit more about the mechanical adversaries Shulk and friends have to face. Again, this is a bit redundant because leaks, but after all the fuss I've made about stuff potentially being retconned and changed in Future Connected or getting more information about characters and stuff, why am I making a video on the main villain force of most of the game less than a week before it releases? Well, simply put, just based on previews, I'm not looking at leaked stuff at all, Shulk does not have Minato enchant at all in Future Connected, so there probably won't be any new Mechon added to the epilogue, and I don't think anything up to Mechonis Core will be changed in the first place, so for once I think I'm good to make this now. Also, one correction about the Minato Arts video: the characters, as confirmed in the Secret Files, were intended to be Chinese and not Japanese, and it hinted that there is potentially a connection to Eastern cultures on the old Earth, and that it was something the programmers of Alvis had done and, like, intentionally incorporated into his system. So that's interesting. It seems that the Minato arts didn't come directly from Alvis himself, but from the people who created him. Back on topic, the story of the Mechon is also very largely the story of the Machina, you know, both being from Mechonis and all that. So we're gonna just have to go through a quick cliff notes of Machina history. They were created by Maineth very, very early on in the history of the world, at about the same time Zanza was making the original Telethia, so not only do they predate Hyentia and Homs, and probably Napon, but they even predate the Giants, and are contemporary with the pre-Hyentia Telethia. Egil, in fact, was born very early on. He was born before the Machina came in contact with the Giants. This was many thousands of years ago, perhaps even tens of thousands of years ago. Why does he seem rather young when his own father is acting like an old guy, even though the time between their births is probably closer than the time that Egil has been alive now, stuff like that? Like, Mikal seems like middle-aged and old, while Egil seems like the equivalent of maybe in his 20s. It seems that Mikal was injured in the battle between the two titans, and that is why he's confined to the big wheelchair floaty thing, and also probably why he looks the way he is. He needed new systems installed to keep him alive, and they just happen to look like that. The art book is kind of interesting, too. In a way, it sort of contradicts itself when it comes to the origins or the true nature of the Mechon. It refers to them as mechanical life forms, but we do know from the game that the Machina built them to some degree. Lanata says that, and in other places the art book also suggests that. The chronology of the two titans, also in the book, says that the mass production of Mechon didn't start until after the Great Battle between the Titans, and even more crucially, after Maneth went to sleep. So it sort of seems like the Machina were the only life directly created by Maneth, unlike Zanza, who seems to have at least sparked the evolution of plants and animals on Bionis, in addition to creating the Hyentia and the other sentient races. In addition to that, there are also actual animals and plants in the Collectopedia for Mechonis areas that don't just seem to be Bionis creatures that migrated over and adapted. You'd expect that for the Fallen Arm in Sword Valley, but Mechonis Field, Agniratha, those still have animal and plant sections of their Collectopedia, so are there mechanical plants and animals in addition to mechanical monsters and mechanical humanoid things? I don't know. The real question is, did Maneth create mechanical life other than just the Machina? We don't know, but in effect, the Mechon can be considered the apex predator equivalent of Mechonis, except that their prey is the sentient races of Bionis, as opposed to anything from their own Titan. Anyway, going back in time a little bit to the Great Battle itself, most of the Machina were wiped out at that time. Most of them lived in Agniratha, it got Telethiad pretty hard, you kinda know what to expect. The survivors were obviously able to escape and eke out a living on the Fallen Arm, and more interestingly, the art book also says they lived in Mechonis Field for a time. It's almost completely barren of Machina when the party gets there, there's one small outpost, but here in the book it seems like they were actually able to have towns maybe? Or at least get a bit closer to the Colony 6 refugee camp than one guard station. Maneth did not go to sleep until after this, which more explains why Vinea had her Minato, and it wasn't until even after that when Egil took power. Interestingly, even at this point, it wasn't after ruling Mechonis for a few years, he was already full extremist and willing to kill his own people because it is said that he eliminated Machina who were against his plans. Which leads me to believe that the Hidden Village is most likely more hidden from Egil than it is from the people of Bionis. Another fun coincidence thing that just kind of happens to be based on the timeline in the book is the fact that the start of the Mechon attacks on Bionis coincided with the height of power of the Bionite Order before it was disbanded by the Emperor Lumion that Callion talks about at some point in the game. So, let's just take a bit of a step back for now. What actually are the Mechon? Well, they're killer robots, they're weapons of the Machina, but they're also sort of the Mechonis version of some animals, or at least of monsters, because those seem to be separate from animals, at least in the view of the Homs. They require ether to function as a power source, so is that just an animal looking for food, or is it a machine looking for fuel? It really does blur the line here. Ether is not produced naturally on the Titan of Mechonis, so they do have to get it from Bionis somehow. This, in addition to the Minato being there, explains why they went for Colony 6 before Colony 9 and why they stuck around after the attack. Sword Valley is also an important location for them because the wound left in the Bionis by the sword is a constant source of ether. The Bionis is dead, but it's still leaking its blood. And this is also partially why Galahad Fortress was made, in order to both protect Sword Valley, since that's an easy way onto Mechonis, but also in order to oversee a device that was made to transfer ether from the wound into Mechonis, and these were actually only constructed a couple years before the original Battle of Sword Valley with Dunban. In reality, the only things that really make Mechon more dangerous than any big wildlife on Bionis are the fact that they go directly after settlements, even Rotbart doesn't invade Colony 6, even though he could probably wipe it out, and the whole immunity to conventional weaponry. It seems like their armor is made of some kind of super hard, super durable metal only found on Mechonis, since only weapons of Machina make can hit through it. Despite that though, it's not really a diamond hitting diamond thing, since Dunban has lightsaber weapons, and those work on them too, they're not even replica Minatos, so it just seems like the Machina have better technology, so they can hit the hardest. Basically, you need Machina Tech or Zanza's Minato in order to damage them physically, but they are still vulnerable to ether. This also explains why the Hyentia had an easier time dealing with them, while most of the Homs were wiped out. And the fact that they can be hurt by toppling them only seemed to suggest that they're less armored on the underside, which kind of makes sense, I guess. While it is pretty obvious that the Mechon threat is what caused the Homs to go and seek out the Minato, this was basically a last resort. Remember, the Minato hadn't been used since the Great Battle, which was before the Mechon started attacking Bionis, so they were just kind of hoping the legendary sword would work, and thankfully it did. They did not know that it was going to do what it did. When they set out, at least. Presumably, once they got it, they could figure things out. The thing is, when you're talking about how the Minato can hit Mechon, it's not a hard armor thing. It's sort of like, diamond armor isn't going to help you if I shoot you with a 4-dimensional laser. The Minato is just something entirely different than anything in the physical world. The only thing that can really stop it from hurting anything is the shackles placed on it by Zenza. So, it's less of the Minato can hit through all armor and more of the Minato is not part of the same rule set as the Mechon at all. Egil did not expect to have to fight the Minato, so initially for the battle at Sword Valley, he did not have countermeasures for it. He developed the face Mechon afterwards. And there's also some interesting info about the faces in the art book. Zord was the first face Mechon created. He was made as a prototype for the mass-produced model that came later. Metalface was made next. Jadeface was made at some point after that. Then the mass-produced were made. Not sure about Yaldabaoth, but Nemesis is the last special version of a face that we see built, since the others seem to have been made before the game started, while we see the finishing touches being put on Nemesis. Like Mumkar, Zord was also killed during the war a year ago, so again, face production didn't begin until after it. When Egil had all these captured Homs, he saw the Minato, and he kind of put 2 and 2 together. The mass-produced faces are not mecha like the special faces. They do not incorporate the entire body of a Homs. It says in the book that the metabolic system and the brain stems are in there, but not the entire body. It's also described that the people are dead and then revived in this state. So they do die and then they're brought back by technology. It's not someone on the brink of death being rebuilt. It's more of Frankenstein than Darth Vader. Fiora, we know as a fact, did die and was revived too. Important exceptions to the whole not actually a person inside a robot thing were made for Mumkar and Gato, who are both notable warriors and highly capable outside their mechs, and Fiora was used to give Maynath a new body, while there's no real need for the mass-produced models to have that at all. Initially, during the initial run of faces, including the mass-produced ones, memories were not removed. Zord lost most of his memories because only his brain stem and not his entire brain made it over, also he was dead, but his personality somewhat remained. Mumkar seems to have retained his entire brain, most of his head is intact, so he's a lot closer to being revived in a new body. Fiora is also described as having lost 70% of her original body, but her head is untouched, so once Maynath backs off a bit, her memories remain the same. Gato does seem to have lost some of his head, but once he remembers stuff, all of his memories come back, and they had already been manually deleted by Egil, so power of friendship and all that. After being damaged at Colony 6, Metalface was upgraded. I feel like this is kind of a thing that people miss out on a little bit, but Metalface does get huge upgrades between Colony 6 and Prison Island, and it's not so much, oh, we added some new attachments. It seems that he was actually rebuilt. This is like Metalface version 2, except unlike Cosmos version 2, it actually looks cooler. Mumkar is also unique in the fact that he has remote control over his Mechon. Egil can do this too, he can at least call Yaldabaoth to him, but it seems like Gato has to at least be touching Jadeface in order to control it, and we never really see Maynath or Fiora do anything outside of Nemesis until after it's already destroyed. The green weapon Metalface carries at Prison Island has a liquid that can destroy the ether of a living being from the inside, so it's basically the perfect poison for literally the entire Titan of Bionis. Zord carried a hammer like the one he used as a blacksmith in life, but after it's perfected, the mass-produced faces all have the same spear Metalface does instead. The whole memory erasing thing was actually a pretty recent concept, all things considered. Basically, Egil saw that the memories were the undoing of both Zord and Mumkar, so he decided to remove them from the remaining faces, but the thing is, faces are barely fought after that. You have Gato, who gets his memory back, you have some mass-produced faces as random enemies, who most players will probably try to avoid because they don't want to kill Homs, and then you have Egil, who never was Homs in the first place. Face Nemesis was not technically designed by Egil. She was sort of outsourced to Vinaya, but also Vinaya built her specially underneath Egil's nose, intentionally so she could be a vessel for Mina's soul. Some of Fiora's organs are actually in the Mechon itself in order to do the blood circulation thing that makes it immune to the Minato, so Mina's Minato acts as life support, keeping the actual body alive. So maybe normal mass-produced faces only need the brain stem and some metabolic stuff, while you need a bit more than 30% of the body to do something like Mumkar and Gato, where they don't have a super powerful power unit, and then Fiora lost more of her body than the other two did, and that's why she needs the Minato, or it was just used to make her more powerful or something. After she loses Mina's Minato due to Minath losing her life, Linata tries to compensate, but obviously those measures won't last forever, and she's basically on a ticking clock. As a face, Yaldabaoth is interesting for a lot of reasons. It's bigger and stronger than every other face, and every other Mechon except a couple Fortress unique monsters and Daedala, but it's also not made out of Homs. Sort of. It is still a face Mechon. That doesn't just mean that it has a face, but it still has Homs organs built into it. It would have been immune to the Minato 1 if Shulk had encountered it before then. But it's modified not to be controlled by the Homs organs, but respond to Egil inside it, piloting it as basically just a normal mech. It's also implied that it is Yaldabaoth that is capable of activating Apocrypha and not Egil himself. It also has add-ons that double its size and increase its power even further while allowing it to hook up to and control Mechonis from Mechonis Core. Interestingly, this is dubbed the Great Egil in the secret files, which is just really funny. I guess Egil even is pretty hammy. And apparently it is painful to activate, and doing so is what caused the destruction of Agniratha. Let's end on a positive note, though. Once Egil is defeated, the remaining faces seem to have lost their brainwashing and regain more memories. They even help out in the defense of Colony 6 at the endgame. Fiora is able to recover her entire Homs body over 6 months, with a mix of high anti-attack and Lanata's medical know-how, and the art book states that her new goal is every remaining face recovering. It also states, elsewhere in the book, that every single face Mechon was restored to Homs form, so I guess she succeeded. And it's very possible that she's going to still be working on it during Future Connected, and we're going to get some throwaway line that even more Homs have come back, or something like that. But yes, this is the video on the Mechon, and if you've played the original Xenoblade 1 and are looking forward to Xenoblade Definitive Edition, I hope this got you even more in the hyping mood than you've probably already been. If you have not played it yet, I'm sorry you sat through this and got spoiled on so much, but yeah, thank you so much for watching as always. I hope you don't mind only sitting through one more video with this kind of audio quality. Well, 2, because I have another thing that I want to upload this week. But yes, until next time, or at least until I open comments again once I finish FC, this is Luxin, signing off.